before you do anything, you have to shift your mindset. So that means, getting around the right people, watching or being mindful of what you watch on television. All that stuff consumes the mind. So, having the right mindset and then having that discipline attached to it and then just doing the work. I say, writing a book is 50% mindset, 30% discipline, and then 20% doing the work. But if you don't have that mindset, you can't get to the discipline part. If you don't get the discipline, you're not going to do the work, so writing a book, it's not so much as hard. It's really just mindset. If you really want to do this, you can't make excuses and say, I don't have time to write. Yes, you do have time to write. Everyone's busy, but at the same time, people make people.
All right, guys, we back for another episode on the Writers Book Club. I am Mr. Old School Writer. I have a very special guest, Mr. Diego from the UK, all the way from, he can tell it himself. Mr. Diego, what's going on, sir?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you? I do appreciate you for blessing us on the Writers Book Club today. Tell us about your book, the title and everything, sir.
Sure. So thank you for having me, everybody. My name is Diego Ifé, and I am the writer of Ethnic Escapism and the Black Burden. This is my first book that I've put together. It's definitely one which is felt very much like a vocation. By trade, I am an academic. I am an economist. But during the course of my undergraduate degree, my first degree that is, I done a module which was on the politics of race in the diaspora. Initially started with the Jewish diaspora, which is seen as the classic case. My second paper, which was very significant and which is what paved the way for this book, is on the African or the Black diaspora, depending on whichever label suits. So for me, it's a journey that's been 7 years in the making, of which I spent roughly 3 years sort of dithering, vacillating. Should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? Eventually, I chose to knuckle down and get serious in late 2018. And I say from about 2019, I made significant strides. And the back end of April was when I made it available for sale, for purchase, through my personal website and also through Amazon. So to sort of give you an overview of the book itself, the book starts off looking at the different nations, polities, empires, if you will, in Africa, where the bulk of Africans were transported to the New World. So see, that covers the groups like what we now know as your Igbos, your Yoruba, the Gold Coast Africans, so to speak, and also the Congolese of West Africa, which includes Angola, both present-day Congos and Southern Gabon. So really looking at the things that made them who they are, the peculiarities about each group, and then leading on from that, we look at what we call creolization, how the culture started to mesh together, how different Africans effectively struck up kinship ties. And that was the making of, for example, Black Americans, embracing the idea of being Black Americans, Jamaicans, Grenadians, and so on and so forth. So I look at that journey, how it came about, is very important in understanding what makes us diaspora and how it evolved. I look at key elements like rebellions as well. That was a key part of group collaboration, why they happened and what their outcomes were. And also the transition coming out from sort of, shall I say, emancipation into the present day. So there's a lot that I unpack, a lot of political issues, systemic problems that different, especially those within the Western world, had to contend with. And then I also look to the future. So ultimately, what are things looking like? For example, there's changing demographics that are, they're unfolding. And because, and this is something which will be interesting for people to give me their feedback as and when they can, Black identities are inextricably, they're very linked, almost indivisible from popular culture. In many cases, someone's blackness is typically measured by how familiar are you with what's going on. If we go back a few decades ago, maybe it was like the hip hop culture. Nowadays, it might be stuff to do with, be an extension of certain sort of black musical production, but it may be TV shows, it might be certain trends, certain prevailing ideas, and depending on where how familiar you are to it, your blackness may be called into question. So, in light of that, keeping in mind that a lot of black people are quite quirky, they have their sort of unique kind of traits as individuals, and reconciling that with performance of blackness is not always easy. And I personally can relate to this, and many people I've spoken to can relate to the idea that it can be quite burdensome trying to make sure that your identity is never really invalidated and you find yourself fitting in the right kind of position. So you're not too far one side, you're not too far another side, and it can be difficult. So I put forward a way of actually looking at identity moving forward. So that's an overview of what I have written. Of course, the overview probably doesn't do reading the book justice, but I guess this is the next best thing. And any questions at all, I'll be happy to take them, and yeah, definitely inform you as much as I can.
All right. Okay. I like that. I got a question. I know you're in the UK right now. Where your people originally from? Your
Sure.
family?
Sure. So I'm mostly Igbo in present day Nigeria. I have, to a lesser extent, other admixtures. So I'm not sure if you know the Aja ethnic group. They're situated between Benin Republic, or the old Dahomey Empire, and Togo. I also have so the Kimbindu or Imbundu, which is present day Angola and Congo. In my blood, and I have a small, ever so small amount, if it really matters, of French, very distant amount. So that's my, sort of like to give you like an overview of my background. I'm part of, if you read my book, you'll see what I'm referring to, but I'm part of the, in quote, new diaspora. So obviously my family has been in the UK for a few decades now, probably like 4 decades or thereabouts. But of course, we supplemented the other groups that have been here longer, like the Windrush generation, which I cover in a fair bit of detail in the book.
So let me ask you a question on this. I know you say you part of the new diaspora. What is the difference between the new and the old? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, sure. But I'll be happy to elaborate on that. So, what I chronicle as the old diaspora are the groups of Africans that were transported. So that's everybody that was caught up in the Middle Passage, right? And that continued right up until sort of the early to the mid part of the 20th century. And then the new diaspora are the groups of people that have either come from the continent to, say, the US or the UK, say, for example, from sort of the period leading out of the Second World War. And then also those, for example, Caribbean people that have come from the islands to either the UK or to the US. So it's pretty much all the sort of migration flows and waves from about 1945 onwards. That's the new diaspora. So the new diaspora is sort of appended to the old diaspora. So that's sort of how I present it. But I look at the different consciousness, because you've got different communities, right? And certain people at times will speak, okay, black people this, diaspora that. But when they now start to penetrate beyond certain sort of what I call the sound bites and cliches, people realize they may not always be on the same page about certain ideas. So that was why, for me, the book was particularly important, was to give some kind of clarity, so that people who may be from one part won't be so surprised that they may look at the world in a different way to those that are from another part. I should add as well that I did my genealogical testing, and funnily enough, most of my distant relatives that I identified are actually from the US. That was part of the influence as well to write this book and actually see myself over the finishing line. And then to a lesser extent, it was from like the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean. So I didn't realize just how inextricably, how closely connected my line was to the Atlantic trade. In fact, I have more family either in the New World or have New World roots in the last sort of 200-300 years than I actually do in Africa. And I have a big family. So, these were all the things for me that were imperatives and really underline the importance of getting this book finished and put out there.
Oh yeah, the reason I asked that question, I know the part of your book, I know you say you have close to like 5,000 distant cousins.
Yeah.
From first to eight. Pretty much. I guess pretty much what happening in those days, we pretty much got dropped off in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
I know in the US it's going to be quite a bit of us. I'm glad you did that. That's pretty good. Were you able to get in contact with some of your cousins?
Yeah, I have. It's been really good because my American family are mostly those that were taken to Virginia, Chesapeake, Piedmont, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and then thereafter to the South Carolina, to be more specific.
Or colonial areas, okay, yeah. Where they settle, okay.
Yeah, so it was good being able to kind of fill in some of the gaps that my distant family had, and then them filling in some of the gaps that I had as well. So we're able to collaborate and kind of mutually find answers, and off the back of that we built a connection. There's some very wonderful people. I'm grateful. I'm so happy that I went on this path. I never intended for it. I'll tell you, if you told me, say back in 2016, that this journey would lead me to where I'm at right now, I'd have said you were a liar. I would have been absolutely shocked. But here we are, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Man, that's gonna be part of your family history, man. If you don't know it by now, but it's part of your family history now. This book and whatever you do after that.
Yeah, and it was very important for that to actually be set in stone. I wanted to see if I could also inspire other people to also maybe be more curious, or if there was certain information which they may have lacked, that they have access to it. I really wanted to make sure that above all else that the book would be a blessing to as many people as possible. It would be great to shift many cells. I'm doing well. I'm getting cells every day, but above all else was really for the value to be derived and to be evident. I mean, anything can be critically looked at. Someone, opinions are going to vary, and I respect all of that and I welcome all of it. But the important thing was to add value in one way or another, and a lot of sleepless nights, the bags under my eyes, but it was almost like a spiritual push that has brought me here. And I feel humbled. I feel honestly, it might not be evident, but I feel very, very excited, very happy, to be honest, to be able to share this with many people. So
oh yeah, man, it's gonna be it's a moment of time for you right now. So the part of the book, I was also looking at the politics of race in the diaspora. What did you mean about that? I'm just wondering about that. I know some parts of the world, the story is told totally different and not told at all.
Yeah,
between us.
Yeah, sure. So when I say the politics, identity politics is something that's a constant. It always comes up in one way or another. Sometimes it simmers underneath the surface. Other times it is full out, very in your face. What I meant by the politics was the experiences that Black people had or have with the sort of systemic, the system, if you will, the institutions of the so-called dominant society. It was really to do with that, the access to civil rights, to public services that others take for granted. Were those limited? In what way? Why was that so? And the journey that actually sort of unfolded from that point onwards. Though that's what I really refer to. So that's where, for example, where certain sort of diasporans were locked out from certain opportunities, they were creative and they were able to address those kind of identity politics in such a way where they maybe sort of defaulted to popular culture as a way to make a living, and also to sort of share their art with as many people as possible. So when I speak of the politics of race and diaspora, it's literally just navigating the identity politics that have bedeviled and have burdened many Black people.
All right. What I find out sometimes when I talk to some of my other people around the world, my African guys,
Mhm.
I kind of tell them like some of the stuff that happened historically with us. A lot
Mhm.
of times they say they never heard of it or that it's not true.
Oh,
The
right.
stuff that happened over here in the U.S.
Mhm.
And then they basically be in shock, like they find out for themselves, like, wow,
Mm,
how come we never heard of this?
mm,
Vice versa, basically, unless you do the research or whatever.
No, that is accurate. That's definitely an accurate portrayal. The issue that you have in Africa, and almost of course there's differences of the countries, but one thing that's pretty consistent is Black history, whether it's New World history, whether it's continental history, is just not prioritized at all. It's almost absent. You can look at curriculums from Nigeria to Uganda. The common denominator is going to be stuff to do with like the Tudors, um, the Victorians, the Stuarts, basically like mostly English and European monarchical history or monarchical history. That's the focus. So you'll find a lot of people's parents and even maybe some of the Africans that you've spoken to can talk to you about Henry VIII. They can talk to you about Henry VII and who else and so on and so forth. But they will struggle to really be able to tell you about certain empires, decentralized societies, the events that marked the onset of the transatlantic trades, all that kind of stuff. They'll struggle. And that is literally because there is a deliberate absence of it within African curriculums. Hopefully, with time, with the coming generations, that might change. But at this point in time, it's just not part of the. It's not a priority for some reason. And so hopefully, sort of books like what I've written and other books out there can maybe sort of shed more light and give more insight to people who may lack it, but are certainly willing to embrace learning new things. So yeah, I honestly think that this is a learning opportunity for not just those in the diaspora, especially like New World sort of roots, but also those on the continent. I think it's just as important, possibly if not more important, because it's very easy to be in an identity bubble of, okay, I come from this country, this ethnic group, we do this, we do that, blah blah blah. But then in some cases, some people may not even realize that the ethnic group that they belong to only really crystallized as an ethnic group within the last, say, 100 odd years. And prior to that, some parts were, or some people within the same ethnic group were enslaving others. And because they didn't identify as one at that time, the other side was fair game. But of course, now they've crystallized, then that issue is not a thing anymore. There are other issues to contend with. So I guess that's a roundabout way of saying I could not emphasize enough how important it is for Africans who, especially who aren't familiar with this kind of history, to really immerse themselves in it, because it's not just more so of a, okay, it's something like a personal interest, but it's something they can also impart maybe on their children, younger people, you know. And I think the more people that know about these things, the better. So if you ever have any discourses, sometimes even maybe quite in heated debates about what did and what didn't happen, there'll be more context. And I do think there is definitely a need for more context around these kinds of subjects,
Oh yes, sir. That's a good way to put it. Actually, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I do understand. I know when some of my brothers and sisters come over here, they just can't understand what's going on, and we have to explain it to them. They'll figure it out eventually, but yeah, it's a lot of convincing to do so. But glad somebody have like an open ear, and books like yours
Yeah.
and others, it's going to put that perspective in place, of course. But so what? So the book that you have right now, are you going to be going on tour, talking to other people about it here pretty soon?
Yes. So between now and the end of the year, I have several lectures that I'm going to be holding, certain events where I'll be doing talks. Some of those are in London, other of those are in Birmingham, Manchester in the UK, and I'm also going to the US as well. I'm going to places like Arizona, funnily enough, LA, and I'm
Okay.
also going to the East Coast as well. And as I have family in Atlanta, And Atlanta, I believe, would definitely be a good place to promote this. I'm also looking to fit that in. So I and my partner were going to, sit down, thrash out the details, and make sure that we cover as much ground as possible on both sides of the Atlantic, and also a couple of Caribbean islands. As it stands, we're looking to also, like University of the West Indies. That's a, they've got some good contacts, and this is the kind of content that they're definitely interested in. So, that's an overview of the launch, if you will, publicity that we're going to be sort of garnering.
Oh yes, that's most definitely going to be a nice tour on both parts of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
If you can get to Atlanta, man, that's a big deal right there.
Yeah, it's a priority.
Most our people, it's kind of like the Mecca right now in Atlanta and DC, but this will actually be the perfect place for you to talk about your book in different places if you can.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the same page, and I'm excited at the idea of it, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully I can catch you while you're down here. I'm in Atlanta myself, been here for a while, but hopefully I'll be able to catch you when you're down here so we can talk a little bit. But okay. Just a little bit more about the book that you have. What's your favorite chapter in the book or your passage?
That's a good question. Can I have two? I'll say two sections.
Oh yeah, do two. This your show, man. Go. I'm just sitting back listening.
Two sections. So I would say it was the accumulating the information and sort of compiling the histories of the different Africans. I thought was really, I enjoyed it because I said, even when I felt tired, okay, this information here, I know there are going to be people that are going to value it, where their ancestors are sort of somewhat humanized. They are aware of the food that they ate, the music that they listened to, the drinks they consumed, the medicines, their religions, the reasons why they believed in what they believed in, all that kind of stuff. And I felt that aside of the discourse on the trauma, which is undeniable, that has, our ancestors and New World ancestors contended with, it was also about who they are, what made them who they are, why they're valuable. So that was one part of the book which I found, which I enjoyed doing, and even reading it back. Yeah, I really did. And then I would say the second part would be like the events that have happened in the sort of Black diaspora from the Second World War onwards, looking at the way that the different groups dealt with the adversities. There was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of achievements that were recorded, and looking at what happened was very inspirational, very humbling, and it felt like I was sort of subsumed into a story that I and many other Black people that I've come across were not here by accident. Like, there are some very critical, significant events that took place that foreshadow our existence on this plane. And I think that I'm a deep person. I'm very philosophical. I like to think deeply, and it just resonated with me. And to that end, I think the identity aspect of it, I think that trying to tackle the burden, what the burden is, what it consists of, and how we can alleviate the identity burden that affects those in the diaspora by and large. That was like the crowning glory, because I spent years thinking about how I was going to address that. And yeah, that was probably for me, the most rewarding part of it, because I felt like I was building up to something, and there was, for me, a very evident problem, and that I was at least willing to experiment by putting the solution out there of how to look at identity. So those are why those aspects of the book really kind of resonated with me, and I enjoyed both putting it together and also reading it back again. So
okay. I like that. I don't know who KB Jones is, but shout out to him. I guess he said evening, broski. I guess that's funny.
My guy. That's my guy. He's a good supporter. He's down for the cause. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thumbnails graphic over there. I'm just kidding. he got him a little something all on him. Okay, I know what happened after that, but all right. All right, let's see. I know you said it took you a part of maybe between 3 to 7 years to write the book.
Yeah.
So what was the most challenging part about this particular book that you wrote?
So what it was trying to ignore the urge to do it, if that makes sense. Like the amount of times going back to 2016 where I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I couldn't pinpoint what was waking me up, because I used to work very hard, so I'd sleep very well until this push to write this book started to really become more pressing. Waking up strange hours for days, of years on end, really, making notes, things would jump out at me. And you know, there's this thing that a lot of writers deal with, writer's block, right? I didn't really suffer from writer's block. I had what you can call writer's overload. That's pretty much what I had to deal with. And so it became a bit overwhelming. You know, for example, it was like, okay, is this title good enough? Does it really capture the essence of what I'm saying? But okay, fine. If I'm cool with the title, is the structure going to do, you know, like the title justice? There's also the element of don't judge a book by its cover, trying to find the right balance where you give the incentive and you put out the right pieces of sort of information or trigger words to pique the interest, but then at the same time, there being some element of well, I call it mystery, so that there's the incentive to read the book and see it through to its end. And thinking about these things, and like I said, I'm a deep thinker, but the amount of thinking that I had to engage in, it was overwhelming. I certainly made adjustments to my career. As much as I, in some respects, enjoy, you know, what I do, there was something about this which transcended that. You know, because for me, even though this project started 7 years ago, I would argue that throughout my life, from when I was a child, I mean, in my foreword, kind of obviously sheds more light on it, but from then, I would say that the identity started to really, you know, become, you know, something that I reflected on with the nascent memories I had, the little bit I knew about the world, and it was something which would just tug at me. So yeah, it was that period, that early period was very critical. And that's why I say in many ways this journey does feel spiritual, because I tried, God knows I tried to avoid doing it, you know. But and like I said, I started out not me thinking about making money. I just was very tunnel visioned. It was all about the process and it was all about the finishing line. And of course, like I said, any, you know, monetary gain is substantial is, of course, I'll be happy about it. I'm not going to front, but it was more so a secondary focus. So yeah, I hope that kind of gives you know, an insight.
Oh yeah, that's understandable as well. Like the guy on the intro, Jay Styles, that you heard earlier, he was also talking about whenever you write a book, that particular book can turn into a whole lot of different avenues. You can do a podcast, you can go on tour, you can also have your course about the book by each chapter, and other things that come from the book. Your book can become like multiple streams of income just from one book or one chapter.
Yeah. No,
you got to be on a nice ride here shortly.
100%. I embrace it. Yeah, I really look forward to what the future holds. Yeah, it's very exciting, very intriguing, if I'm being honest. And I'm out of my comfort zone. If I'm being honest with you, like I'm fully out of it. It's almost like I'm comfortable being out of my comfort zone, which question, I mean, am I out of my comfort zone if I've got used to it? I don't know. Anyway, let me not
when you say you're out of your comfort zone, what does that mean? Are you talking about the book, or are you talking about like talking like in front of people or whatnot?
Yeah, more so talking, because with the book, I kind of got into a routine in a sense. I mean, roundabout routine, by and large, where elements of my writing sort of journey and process was actually quite predictable. Yeah, by and large, but actually talking about it, where I'm on, you know, receiving feedback in real time. I mean, for example, one of my readers reached out to me and she had a lot of feedback. What she told me though was that with some of the information that she read about, like, for example, the Igbos in the old world and obviously their transition over to the new world, that some of this, if I had added some images, for example, of some of these masks and, like the scarification and what have you, it would have made it a lot more vivid, especially for people that are interested in the topic but are not habitual readers. I think it's a great suggestion. So at some point in time, I will look at it in the second edition and I will implement that. So it's very almost profound receiving feedback and, really, like people purchasing the book and really almost want it to be, very successful ride for me. It's overwhelming. I've not quite had the kind of love that I've received so far. And, God bless everybody that has actually been there for me, because it's very much appreciated. But yeah, it does, like I said, it does feel surreal. It's almost like, wow, this is happening in real time. Like, whoa, like, wow, you understand? I don't know how to explain it, but definitely feels surreal. So
Oh yeah, I do understand what you're saying regarding that particular part. In the digital age right now with the books and writings, you can actually go back into it like real quick and make adjustments. I know in the old days it's going to take a very long time and it's going to cost a whole lot more money, but now it's a lot faster whenever you get ready, basically.
No, exactly.
When I use my imagination on this book mostly anyway. I did a little Googling myself to see, what does that mean? What are you talking about? And bam, the pictures are right there of like an example is like right in front of me. But on the second edition, it's going to put it right on the money for you.
Yeah, I'll have more images in there just so that people can really envision, like, just what things were like. Like, for example, the elders sort of in the village square, for example, kind of, discussing, very pertinent topics. So I'll have features like that. Your sort of like your masks. There's an instrument called the Ibu Oja, which is like a flute that you'll hear sometimes in the south, in the deep south, and also in islands like Jamaica. So for some people who have already seen it, masquerades, for example, and then I'm not sure if you've heard of a festival called John Canoe, like a celebration.
I've been seeing all type of festivals all the time. I don't know the name of them. I know people dress up in different type of cultural clothing.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, for example, the more recent sort of celebrations having pictures of those and having pictures of the olden days kind of together, so people can see the journey, how things have kind of taken place, the parallels, and it'll, in many ways, the content will resonate that more deeper, that much more deeper. So, those are things that I'm definitely going to implement. Going to definitely do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be real good, man. We can't wait for the second edition and also the part 2. All right, we pretty much close to the end. I got a couple other questions on this right now. Cool. I know you mentioned you had writer's block, but not writer's block. What was the other term that you brought up?
Writer's overload.
That's the first time I actually heard that. I know it's out there, but I like that's actually a better description.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome that?
That was probably one of my bigger challenges, because in real time, whether I would always have like a notepad and pen next to me, and I always have my notes app on my phone. Sometimes it was easier to scribble things down. Other times it was easier to type it down. Sometimes I would have certain information I have to email to myself. Just find ways to get things down in different pieces. You'll see one word, you might see something on social media, and it will trigger like a stream, literally like a train of thought. You're like, wow. And then it was difficult in a way, because I'll be honest with you, with writing this book, I actually wrote far more than I thought I would have. I mean, I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot. Like,
yeah, you most definitely wrote a whole lot. It don't look that big, but once you start getting into it, like, yeah, it's quite a bit of information, but it flows so well. It makes sense why you had to write like that.
Yeah.
If it was a shorter version of the book, I'm like, what the rest of it at? But the way that you put it out, it actually worked itself out.
Yeah. So it took a while, but yeah, the compilation structure as it is, this was the smallest or the shortest I would be able to do. I have spoken with a publisher about a condensed version for like children, so like a very sort of high level, kind of, introduction. Because obviously I've got to take into account that children are not going to be so familiar with certain concepts, but there's a way of expressing these things that can at least put us, sort of instill a seed. So we're also looking at how that can be feasible as well. So
if you do like a children's version, man, you're gonna be out of here, man. That's gonna be great, man. That's gonna be great.
Yeah. So that'll
that's a big children's books is a very big market.
Yeah, definitely. I'm coming to realize that now. More and more it's dawning on me. So yeah, definitely something I'll be looking forward to.
You can most definitely cut this book over at least like 5 books for the children,
man. Yeah.
You only need like a little bit of information at a time anyway. They can just keep on going. You can, obviously the money gonna come anyway, but you also gonna be a service to those kids and also the parents as well. So the parents can pick up the other book, your book, the regular book.
Yeah, that's actually
more deeper information,
Yeah. No, that's a good point, actually. I didn't consider that, but yeah, it makes sense, definitely.
So what would you suggest for people that want to write for the first time? What information do they need, or how the process will work for them?
So I would say that number one, anyone that's an aspiring writer, almost like a mantra, you have to tell yourself you can do this. You can do this. You almost have to remind yourself at regular intervals that almost every writer was in their position at a certain point in time. They have to really take, because I believe that in actually embracing that and actually telling yourself that you're not inferior to writers out there that have produced very impressive pieces of work. You're capable, but the question is, are you willing to take the risks? Are you willing to sort of fail in a sense? And what I mean by that is, you have all these different ideas. You might struggle with structure. There may be things that you think you should know that you don't know, and you feel almost like your confidence can be a bit shaken. But you have to remind yourself you can do it, because it's going to inform all the actions. If you believe you can do it and you practice believing you can do it, understanding difficult concepts won't be so, it will be far easier to grasp than one might be able to imagine. The ability to be more strategic, thinking about how you can make your book more appealing to publishers. Looking on Amazon to see what one can learn about the bestseller list. What is it that made these books popular? The reviews, for example. These are definitely ways in which, it can help a writer to sort of shape their book, because essentially what, as a writer, you're trying to do is you're trying to give your own kind of spin on a particular subject, or trying to fill in a gap that you believe is not there. So, or even maybe tell something that's already been told in a way which you think might even be an improvement. So, yeah, those are the things I would say. But above all else, as an aspiring writer, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to be confident in being confident, if that makes sense. You have to have the confidence and the belief that you will attain a level that will see you from start to finish. So I hope that is helpful to those that might be listening now, or even listening to the playback.
Oh yeah, you're most definitely right about that. Okay, that's a great answer right there. Yeah, also with authors or anybody in business or retail or whatever the case may be, you also have to go out and talk about your product or your book or whatever you got. I guess it's a term that we say over here in the community. I guess we have to say you have to put it in their face. Basically the book is not going to sell itself. You got to put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. Very important. Very important.
By you doing things like this and going on tour, your book is going to sell a whole lot more. More people going to see your face. go know how you sound and things like that. And also, what's going on, Miss Diva Diva? I'm not sure who that is, but shout out to you as well. She must be on your side.
Yeah. These are my supporters. See, when I received the link, I made sure that I got out there as much as I could. I made sure that as many people could watch in and sort of add to your sub count, and even watch some of the other videos too. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a variety of videos. Hey, don't be scared, y'all. We just talking. People gotta get different perspectives of life from different people from different backgrounds, of course. So before we're gonna talk for a few minutes after we get done with this. But so what your final thought at this time?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. Definitely a surreal one. Feels very rewarding to have reached this point, and a strong desire to make sure as many people as possible have heard about it. Like, even funny enough, today this is like my second kind of like podcast / kind of radio appearance. I was actually on the BBC Radio London earlier today, so I'm going as hard as I can. There's this sort of like black sort of Windrush or Caribbean celebration that's taking place in the UK, trying to hit as many spots as possible. I'm going to be on more radio shows, possibly be at a few festivals. I'm going to have sort of like stalls and be able to really speak to a wide range of people, at least on this side of the diaspora. And that's without me actually really calibrating, the wider sort of marketing plan. So it's a very exciting time. And the key thing is I really just want to get the discussion going. I mean, there are discussions that already are taking place, but some of the ideas that I raised, for example, decentralized blackness, I really want to, pique people's thoughts and, that kind of thing. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to, experiencing more of.
Man, decentralized blackness. That's another. Yeah, you better title. You better lock that title down. That's a good title for something, man.
Yeah,
it could be another book or some type of motion or picture or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I like that. That's actually a good title on that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So before we go, tell us where we can find you and find your book.
Sure. So my book can be bought at the moment from 2 online platforms. One is my personal website, which is www.diegoife.com. So that's DIEGOIFE.com. And Amazon, if you literally type into the search tool, ethnic escapism and the Blackbird, or even just ethnic escapism, it will come up. And that's where you can purchase it. For any buyers in the US, Amazon will probably be the best platform to buy it from. And those in the UK, either option will work. So yeah.
All right. So let me get back on the camera real quick. Hopefully I'm not blurry this week, but let's try this out right now. Of course, it's Mr. Old School Ride on the Riders Book Club. Your boy gonna be at the C Awards this weekend in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm up for radio show podcast of the year in that category with some heavy hitters. Hopefully your boy pulled this out. If not, we're going to try this again next year, but we're going to get bigger and better. And we have interviews like this. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Old School Rider with the way it's spelled on the screen or in the description as well. Also, the Riders Book Club is the same way that you see it on the screen. You like to share and subscribe. If you guys want to be on the show, pitch your book or anything like that, just hit me up at the Riders Book Club at gmail.com. And we'll work it out. We'll give you the details, what it need to be. But anything else you got for me, Diego?
Thank you for having me. Definitely humbled, very appreciative, and I'm definitely going to be continue to support your channels. Definitely spread the word, and look forward to maybe future collaborations and watching more of your content.
Yeah, you can come on here anytime, man. If you got like a book or anything else that's coming out, just hit me up like you did, and we'll take it from there. And whenever you get to Atlanta, hopefully, we'll talk a little bit. We'll chop it up.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It'll be my second time, so I look forward to it.
Yes, sir. All right, don't disconnect. I'm gonna go ahead and end a live right now, but hold on, Diego. But other than that, Mr. Old School Riding, we're over and we out, and we'll catch you on next week on the next show. Oh, y'all got some big surprises. Your boy on tour, but you're gonna see who I'm gonna have on the list very soon. Oh yes, and we're over and we out. Hold on, Diego.